right, welcome back to another episode of I Podcast That 2.0. I am Brian, your host, and it's been a while. I opened Sitch Radio about 3.5 years ago. I am a full-time podcast production house. We have a 1,200 square foot facility in Irvine, California. A lot of our hosts are remote, hosts and guests remote. A lot of people do come in and use the studio. So if you need help with your podcast production, give us a call, sitchradio.com. Now, if you listen to yesterday's episode, we talked about the 3x3 approach to managing a podcast. And those three things are create, promote, and sell. Today, we are doing a deeper dive into create. So, if you are in a niche, it's not all that important that if you're the expert in that niche, if you're relying on guests, there's nothing wrong with you being an interviewer, asking questions of that guest who is the expert on that subject matter. Most podcasters have a level of expertise in the area in which they podcast. So coming up with topics shouldn't be that difficult. So for example, this is a 5-day-a-week show. Monday through Friday, we pump out content. Now, is there enough content to continue this? Well, there is, because we haven't even dipped into a News Monday episode or something like that. We're kind of getting through some of the basics right now. But thinking about what am I going to talk about next is very, very important, and planning that out. For example, this episode right now is scheduled to release on the 4th, which is Friday. So we're recording this early. However, we have the next 6 episodes outlined, and we're going to be recording those today and finishing up those session on Friday. So all of next week is going to be recorded before the end of this week, which puts us in a great spot and allows us some cushion to start planning the next episode. So with that having been said, where do I come up with content for this? A lot of it's from frequently asked questions. Podcasters ask, how do I do this? What about this? Should I think about this? And when they're great ideas or something that should be discussed, we dump it in our Airtable. And if you've listened to previous episodes, you understand how we utilize Airtable for this show. So I subscribe to a lot of podcast newsletters. Inside those newsletters, sometimes there's articles, sometimes there's links to articles, and I might go, wow, that's kind of a cool twist on this subject. Let me review this article and write out my understanding, my take, my experience, the way I deploy things along the same lines. So we create a piece of content. And some of the past episodes and some future episodes will be just that, me repurposing a piece of content that was written by somebody else. But it's 100% me. It was more of an idea about how to talk about or about a subject, and I talk about it in the manner in which I talk about it with my existing hosts, future customers. So there's that aspect. Let's talk about guests. So I encourage everybody to come up with a list. We call it a hit list, but we're not hitting anybody, of people you would like to see on your show, and think big. Start an email chain with them, inviting them on to your show. When that falls upon deaf ears, you can send them form letter 2 talking about the advantages of guests being on your show. When that falls on deaf ears, we have form letter 3, and we kind of recycle these over time until they say, no, leave me alone, and or they come on the show. Now, when we're cherry picking this hit list, we want people with name recognition within the niche or industry you're speaking to, because that brings people to your show. Number 2, we want people that are extremely active on social media, whether it be LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and then we're going to provide them the pre-written tweet and graphics so they can easily promote their episode of your show on their social media channels, bringing their followers' ears onto your show. So that's another great tactic of choosing a guest. If you're in a bind and you need people, book authors. A couple great things about book authors, especially if they just dropped and or are promoting a future drop of a book. They love podcasts. They're well-versed. They know their content really well. They've interviewed hundreds of times usually, and it's a softball. Not saying all authors are softballs, but it's usually a really easy tactic to get an author to promote their book on your show. Now, with that having been said, know about their book, read it if you can. You want to be able to say, well, in chapter 4, page 97, you talked about this. Can you explain that a little more? And A, that lets the author know, wow, this guy's on it. And B, he picked a really good, topic from my book to discuss on this show. And don't make it somebody else's question on another podcast. I encourage you, if they've interviewed on other shows, YouTube channels, podcasts, watch them. Are they the standard typical, so why'd you write this book? So how long did it take you to write this book? People don't care about that as much as the why and the tidbits of info you can pull about the book from your reading of the material and share that with your audience. And it makes for a much better interview. There's a lot of Me Too episodes out there. Oh, you interviewed him, me too. And if you listen to 3 or 4 of them, it's pretty much the same interview. And no disrespect to Matt McConaughey, but his book Greenlight, when he dropped that, I jumped on it immediately because I like him and I enjoyed the book thoroughly. I highly recommend it. But he just carpet bombed podcasts, YouTube channels, news channels, and it was the same interview questions over and over. It's like he sent them a list. These are the questions you need to ask me. And after 1 or 2, it's like, it kind of deflated my enthusiasm for that interview. Not necessarily for the book, but just him talking about the book. Really good book. Check it out. Greenlight, Matthew McConaughey. But authors are really, really good guests to have. You just need to pull information out of them nobody else has. That's awesome. So I talked about emails. Have emails templated out so you can send them, hey, I'd like you to be a guest on the show. Hey, this is what you can expect. Hey, thanks for agreeing to be a guest. These are the next steps. Hey, we've gone through the tech check and the pre-interview. We need to schedule a date. Here's a link to my calendar. Get Calendly or Acuity or some sort of calendar scheduling software. Calendly and Acuity syncing with one calendar is free. And it's a great tool because they can see what you have available, match it with their calendar, and pick a date, pick a time, and record on. So it's an easy, painless way to do it, and or ask them for a link to their calendar so you can check your availability and schedule with them. Provide the links, provide instructions. If you're using a tool like Riverside, let them know what to expect if you didn't cover that in the tech check and or pre-call. That way there's no, oh my gosh, I got to get to that. How do I do this? Where's that button? There's no, you're not building any anxiety right before you get them on to talk about what it is you're going to talk about. But get that scheduled. Record the episode. If you're recording and editing, you want 30 minutes, you should be recording about 40 to 45 minutes worth of content. That way you can drop some sections that weren't all that exciting, or you have room to edit out some of the ums, ahs, long pauses, et cetera, and you still have about a 30-minute show. It's better to have too much than not enough. Once it's recorded, now we need to edit the audio. Whether you're sending it out or whether you're doing it yourself, take the time to edit it. More so for audio quality than ums, long pauses, filler words, etc. We want noise to be at a minimum. We want everybody sounding good. We want both tracks at equal levels to include the music. So if you have a music intro, an intro, your track, their track, and a music outro. All 5 tracks need to be leveled so they're being sent out at the same volume. We don't want one person to be really loud and the other person to be really faint. It just makes for a bad listening experience and people will check off. I know I have. Once it's edited, then it's time to schedule. Take the time to take your title. Say Matthew McConaughey, green light. I'm pulling this off the top of my head. Title. Listen to this episode while Matthew McConaughey talks about hitting green lights. Okay. And then that first sentence of the description. Matthew McConaughey just released a book, Green Lights, and talks about the differences between green lights and red lights and how they affected life and how you dealt with them when you came up, when you approached one of those, something like that. But our keywords or tags or hashtags are Matthew McConaughey, green, light, lights, red. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. We're creating an SEO title, description, and tags. Those tags can be turned into hashtags. Those tags can be turned into search terms on your website if you're posting each episode in a blog format on your own website. But you want to put thought into the title and description. Take, for example, scroll through the news and read headlines only. Which headlines grab you? Which headlines capture your attention? Those are the types of headlines you want to read. If you don't have a big image up top, that title is the first thing they're going to read and decide whether they want to dive deeper or not. If you have images associated with your blog posts and shows, you want that image to be captivating. You want people to stop on it. You've scrolled through Instagram. Oh, that was cool. Let me go back. That was a cool picture. Let me like it. Maybe leave a comment. You want that same experience for the people viewing your show, whether it be in a podcast app and or on your blog. But you want to take the time to title, descript, create a piece of art, tag out appropriately so it can be discovered in search. Now, tomorrow, we're going to be talking about how to promote all of this work that we just did. And this is one of those things where a lot of podcasters just, let me tweet really quick. Let me put up a Facebook post. Let me put up an Instagram post. Let me put up a Parler post. Let me put up a Gitter post. Yeah, it's LinkedIn appropriate. Let me throw it on LinkedIn. And then they kind of forget about it. And they hope that the algorithms are going to show their post to millions of people. And that's going to be your best show ever. We're going to talk about the reality of that tomorrow. So if you don't follow us on Instagram or Twitter, please do. It's free. You know what we're doing. You'll see the posts. Joey is going to start coming in here and taking a couple pictures and maybe throwing a TikTok or two up live, or IG story. This show's not on TikTok. IG story, Facebook story of me running my mouth. But that's the type of content you're going to start seeing right now. We definitely post about every episode, but we are going to up my game just like I spoke about. And boom, boom, boom. This is a Friday show, so you're probably listening to this on one of the many podcast players. If you would like to hear Monday through Thursday episodes, you can find us over on Substack. We are a podcaster's newsletter, and the subscription is $5, $6 a month. A couple cups of coffee. For less than 1 cup of coffee a week, you can get me Monday through Thursday. And if you're going to Podcast Evolutions in Los Angeles here in a couple of weeks, hit me up. Let's DM, text, email, scream and yell Brian until I find you in the crowd. And let's meet up. I'd love to say hi, shake your hand, and get to know who's listening to this show. I'm so looking forward to that event. And there you'll be able to scan my Popl and get all my contact information on your phone with just a little tap. If you're interested in Popl or a app-friendly business card, check out Popl. Links in the show notes below. Until tomorrow.